This is Believe in Buckeyes. I'm Brian Browning with All-American quarterback Chimdi Chekwa. We got a really good show for you guys. We got the government, the judges, the officials weighing in on the status of college football. So things are changing. But Chim, how you doing, man? I know you took a trip out west to the desert. It's not your old stuff, guys, but you went to Vegas, man. How was that?
Yeah, I had spent some time in Vegas, man. Went out for a Raiders alumni weekend, got to see all the guys. Well, a few of the guys I used to play with. But a lot of the older Raiders hung out for a couple days. I went to a Ludacris concert, enjoyed some comedy show. They had, the Mark Davis and the Raiders, they took care of us. And our guy, Jay Rich.
Jay Rich, yeah.
Jay Rich was out there. He got on stage, he hosted the comedy show. I'm a Buckeye and a Raider, so yeah, it was a good time, man. So how was your weekend? How'd you do?
Man, it was good, man. My kid had a dance recital. You a girl dad as well. A lot of energy and effort goes into a dance recital. So
right.
We got through that. We had some family come to town to see her dance, and it was a good weekend, man. So I cannot complain, man. But let's get into it, man. Obviously, the NCAA has made their ruling that the schools can officially pay their student athletes basically off a shared revenue sort of a motto. And then with that also it became a settlement. I believe it was the number $2.8 billion settlement that they would pay out for the next 10 years for previous student athletes starting at the year 2016 through 2024. Those guys were receiving funds. So I guess first off, yeah, man, it's funny, like it's itching down, right? It's getting closer. Everybody always asks, are you guys like upset you missed the boat? It's too far away. It's getting closer, right? But what's your thoughts on that and the ruling and how it might change the landscape here of college football as we know it?
So thought number one, who do we know in our class is suing? Because they're 2016 now. All it takes is a couple more lawsuits, and you break into that 2010.
I think our quarterback man threw something out there. I don't know if you said.
Yeah. So I'm just watching. I'm sitting back and paying attention. It's interesting. I mean, it's not a surprise, right? This has been kind of brewing for a while. This is the final ruling for now on the settlement, and it makes it interesting because now it's getting real. Right, we had this, a few years of NIL and the craziness. Now that money is shifted into the schools directly paying the athletes, and obviously has a lot of ramifications on not just the football program, but the entire athletic department. But you started to see some of the moves. You saw Ohio State coming out with their new premium seating, right? You're going to see more of schools trying to figure out ways to generate income. So I say this: life as we know it from college football standpoint, it's over. Right, it's over.
Things are changing, right? Yeah. Right. They're starting to rumor that the private sector and private funders are starting to come in and make offers to school. And we kind of talked about it before the show because it was rumored that Penn State and UCLA made a deal, and it seems like they made some type of deal, but it's not like where your head would go in a situation like this. And so at first, I guess. Can you do a good first job at explaining what does that look like? Because if you're like me, you have to explain it to me, right? What does that look like? Private sector kind of coming in and assisting with schools and their funding, and then I guess we could kind of give our thoughts on good idea, bad idea, and how far is our college sports going to go in a different direction because of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look across any industry in America, wherever there's an industry that's growing. And there's money and there's opportunity, you see private equity investment coming in. So with the NCAA and the settlement and the rev share and this, what used to be money coming in from athletic departments and money just going back out, right? They're not really trying to generate revenue. That's going to change because they have to now pay those employees, which are technically the athletes. So private equity is really just investors. Private money, people who have high net worths, a lot of money, billionaires, etc., coming in, putting money into an industry that they see potential growth, potential to generate a return on their investment. And I know UCLA, Penn State, although they have some type of relationship with a firm that has private equity funds in it. They don't necessarily. They say they haven't necessarily taken private money, but I mean, it's gonna happen, right? It's gonna happen. We saw Florida State was another school that was considering private equity. The Big 12, those reports that came out that they considered it, but they haven't done it yet. At some point, in order for these schools to be able to continue to pay these athletes as the money grows, like because it's 20.5 now, it's not gonna be 20. It's gonna be more next year and more after that. So at some point, you're gonna see schools trying to figure out, okay, how do we generate enough funds to be able to continue to operate at as generating revenue. And in order to make money, you got to spend money, right? That's why when Ohio State came out with the premium seating, I know a lot of Buckeye fans began complaining. Like we
got the booths on the sideline,
right.
Man. With the it's gonna be like it's gonna look like the Raiders spot. It might be like a little club scene going on down there, man.
and I think so. Now the band is no longer going to be in their normal location. Going to move to the other end zone, and people don't like that change. There's been a lot of talk about we need a new turf or we need some grass and stuff like that. We need to fix certain things. Well, you got to spend money to make money, but the key thing is you got to make money. You got to make money, and I think you're going to see that mind shift for a lot of athletic departments who have big staffs. It's a lot of sports that don't actually generate any return, right? And this thing is going to grow. The value of these athletes are going to continue to grow. And I look at it like this, right? The college football as we know it is changing, but at some point it was going to have to grow up, right? At some point it's going to have to grow up. When you have a daughter, right? You love your young, cute daughter. At some point, she's gonna grow up and get married. This is where we're at in college football, and it's going to be a change. It's going to be a shift. It's something that might take a little bit of time to get used to. But as this change happens, there's going to be a lot of interesting dynamics. Like what happens with all the non-Power 5 schools?
Yeah, I mean that's I think that's always the first question, right? Because everything kind of get geared around the Power 5, and they have the really big TV deals, and so they are able to kind of, because in my head, like do they need this private money? Like they got the TV deals already, like right, kind of take cover. Because one thing before we get too far into the non-Power 5 school, it's like it's concerning, right? Because I mean, like these guys not gonna make this investment into college football or that school or whatever that's taking place and not have control, right? And so you always have an AD that usually runs the show, right? They're making all decisions, like you say, making the decision to spend money, to make money, things of that nature. You get a private group come in here, some billionaire, off of whatever industry that they're coming from. They're doing it to make money. They're just not doing it like as a last year, what you say, basically NIL deal. This out of generosity of their heart, they just kind of gave this. No, they're doing it for some control. They're going to be making decisions. They're going to be looking at a budget. They're going to be looking at costs, right? You just talk about the staff, what they're spending on costs and how can that be cut. Once again, because it's about the profit and the bottom line and things of that nature. So it's concerning. So you, as a university, you should be trying to hold off on this by any way possible. But we know things get competitive and you want results. And this might just be a quick way to kind of get you one.
Yeah, that control is going to be probably the biggest thing, because that's ultimately what you give up once you take on outside money. We take on this money, this private money. Those private individuals make decisions. Now, we've always had donors, and donors have always impacted decisions, right? They've always impacted decisions, right? This coach who we just gave a 6-year deal gets fired in year 3. The donors gave the okay on this fire, right? It was putting the money up to make sure this guy is getting paid. We'll put the money up to pay this guy that we get rid of. So there's always been some of that, and there will continue to be that. But there's some other decisions, right? Revenue generating decisions. Do we put logos on the jerseys, right? Do we change the name of the field? You saw Pitbull bought the naming rights to FIU. Does that go up for sale? So there's going to be some things that shift or that we view as tradition, right? The band moving from one end zone to the other. There's going to be some more stuff down the road that changes, and I think Ohio State in general, Ohio State and some of the larger schools, the bigger brand schools, are well positioned because of their fan base, where they can generate money the old school way, raise prices, and the fans are going to pay, but also the TV deals, etc. But they're still going to have to navigate ton of spending, large staffs, ton of sports, right? So that's something that is going to be an
all up in the
ongoing
air, all in
fight.
question.
Right.
all in question. That's for sure. But you had brought up the Power Four, not the Power Five schools. I'm about to say the Power Four. I don't know. I'll just make that up. But, I think right now there's a decision that this teams could make, right? They could kind of opt into the settlement, right? And say like, hey, we're going to play our previous players and we want to have the ability to kind of take shared fund and distribute that to our athletes and kind of get right into that game. And it looks like some people are making a decision. I believe Temple have made a decision that they want to opt into the settlement and kind of be a part of that, and other schools as well. But it's just, I guess it really, to me, it really doesn't change much, right? Like, they are always going to have to figure it out a little bit more than the big conferences, right? They always gonna have to be a little bit more creative. They always gonna have to kind of take a look at, I'm gonna say, the less recruited player, and that's just the environment that they live in, and just like them, they want to do well. Why? So they could move on up and get to one of those other positions, or progress in their career. So I don't think much changes, right? I mean, it's still gonna be more high school. We talking about football, high school football players than it is at college. So, they'll be able to kind of sort out how to make a team from there. It's just some teams are going to be a little bit more aggressive about trying to get those funds for their teams. And some teams are going to say like, hey, look, this is what we had. This is what we're going to do. And we'll make a roster kind of work from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. You see some of the shifts in hiring across football. Norfolk State. You see Michael Vick got a job somewhere. Deshaun Jackson got a head coaching job at a smaller school. Dion at Colorado, right? You're starting to see a decision that's made for football. It's a football decision, but it's also kind of a brand decision as well. How can we, maximize the celebrity as well as the on-field play? And I suspect that continues, right? Especially for those schools, or those level schools that are not necessarily Power Five, where all the following already exists. But those other schools, how do we continue to generate or create or grow our brand and get the community or get the alumni excited about what we have going so that we can keep those revenue generating opportunities. So, it's going to be interesting how teams navigate it. I think those who have a very specific plan, right? We saw Indiana find some success with their approach to transfer portal, utilizing NIL, etc., to create a solid team. You're gonna see not so much just the coach, right? It's gonna be organizationally, like GM, coach, president, AD, etc. Those schools who come up with a plan for, okay, this is our niche. This is what we're gonna be good at, and we just got to focus here. They're gonna be the ones who find the most success in all this chaos.
Yeah, and I think I mean, and that's what it comes down to, is like kind of having a plan, kind of figure out how you can kind of get into it and figure out from here. Well, I think another thing that's kind of big about this whole what's going on now, this change here in college football with the schools kind of stepping in and sharing profit and that spend with the players, is now how the NIL is kind of going to be more evaluated. We're hearing that, in this ruling that they're brought in a consultant that's going to start looking at some of these individual deals that are going to the athletes. And obviously the thought of NIL always has been, you need to get paid for your name, image, likeness. But we're not paying you to come to our school to play. But we all know that, essentially, I think they even tried to say they was going to look into it for a few schools, and then they just like let it go, because everyone knows it's happening, But the same thing is like, what are you going to actually do about it? How are you going to actually prove it? And they just kind of, I think they threw their hands up and figured, we get something in this ruling that makes sense and that could help them out. And so with their stating in the ruling, they're going to have a third party looking at deals and kind of figuring out, did this deal make sense, right? And just being blunt about it and then saying like, hey, did you just pay a guy $1 million, because, he could assist with selling tennis shoes and no one knows him? He only has a small, he's just going, he's going to his first year of college, he's not even got there yet. Doesn't seem like a real thing. And they say that basically this is going to kind of try to kind of even out the playing field a little bit. And you kind of brought it up with Coach Indiana Signetti stating that, teams have unlimited spending. When they're talking about like Texas Tech and then Ohio State and the Oregons, like, they're just kind of throwing money everywhere. But this is kind of supposed to be kind of bringing that down and making some sense of it. I guess my first question is, do you think it's going to work?
I don't think it works. I don't think it's going to work. And I think it's iteration number 1 of trying to figure out how to do this thing. But I don't think it works because, what is your process for determining how much individual player you can spend on them? Without a salary cap in general, and a salary cap is basically a negotiation between two entities, right? And professional sports and NFL, you have an agreement between the owners and the players, right? The owners and the Players Association. This is where we go back and forth, and this is what it's set on. But to have a third party come in and say, you know what, we may feel like Caleb Downs is the top defensive player in college football, and he is instrumental in wins and basically Ohio State being able to repeat as a national champion. So what is the value for that, right? Like, what is the value? The value essentially is how much another team would pay for Caleb Downs at the end of the day. So I'm interested to see kind of what the metrics are that a third party comes in to kind of regulate it. But they had to do something, right? They had to come up with some way to keep this thing from just being completely crazy. And at least they can say we brought in a third party, right? Yeah. It wasn't us. We brought a third party in. And they all got MBAs. Right? So some of them got doctorates. And they're gonna tell everybody, because they are the smartest people in business, they're going to tell everybody what it should be. But how many of them have, gotten contained or forced an interception or gotten a sack, right? Like, right. I don't know. I don't know, if they're going to be able to truly do it. Honestly, I'm going to say they won't. And what's going to ultimately happen is we're going to continue to see more lawsuits. And this thing's going to continue to change until in some way there is just an entity that represents the players, right? And then that negotiation can happen in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, right. We had a guy on who's working on that, right? He's trying to put that together and kind of come forward with it. But yeah, like you said, I don't think essentially it's not going to work. I mean, how do you even? It's just so many data points, right? Like you say, how the player performs. What's his presence, right? We all know, like, you could be this on the field, but you just have a large presence online because you're good at dancing, stuff of that nature. Markets matter. If you're in Columbus, that market is much different from being at USC. There's a ton of factors here. So, I mean, I obviously, like you said, they should try it. Maybe the schools try to, abide by it. But once again, we're talking about guys that are competitive. So when it comes down to it, I think they're going to, once again, look at their budget and do what they can to kind of generate things overall and not try to, dictate things in that matter, man. But
and this thought just came to me as Penn State. I always classify Penn State as a second tier team.
Yeah. And yes, you do. That's a fact. You do that.
And that's who they are. But they just seem to be, I just feel like they're up to something. I know they denied the private equity funding, but I feel like they have a plan. They have a plan to generate more and more money to try to get up to that top tier. So I will pay attention to Penn State. We saw that in the offseason, their approach to keeping their guys and really making a run at this national championship. Now we hear the reports of, them them partnering with Elevate, and I know it's for tickets and doing things to generate more revenue. But Penn State keeps trying to sneak into that first tier, and they're right on the cusp of it.
Yeah.
They're right there.
Especially, but right, and I mean rightfully so, because obviously it's always going to be Ohio State's conference.
Yeah.
But we know, our rival, the team up north, they're going through their thing, right? We hear rumors about they had a hearing, didn't go well. The NCAA is going to come down with this hammer on all these different things. So it's like that number 2 spot is like up for grabs. You got Penn State, you got Oregon there. It's up there. So hey, push your chips to the center of the table and make a play for it. I guess.
Listen, we gotta be careful because Ohio State's getting basically getting the weight of Big Noon put on their back, right?
Yeah.
All these Big Noon games. Meanwhile, I saw Penn State is going to have a whiteout game.
Yep.
I can't.
We're not invited. They play Oregon.
Yeah. They play Oregon in the whiteout.
Oregon in the whiteout. Yeah.
Right. And that Penn State environment. If there was a place, if I had to choose one place, my favorite place to play at night, it was Penn State. Man, it's just a great environment. And the thing that's going to be interesting with all this money, all of the revenue share, private equity, the changing, the team that's going to have the best brand is the one that is able to hold on as much to their tradition and the things that people hold dear to them. That's just the reality of it. Yes, you got to make money. You got to continue to grow. You got to be able to be, in the green in terms of revenue and expenses. But whoever could do that and still hold on to that tradition is going to be the one that continues to give fans the type of experience that makes them passionate and love college football. And that's the balance, and that's the challenge. But that's just the reality of college football. This is why they love it. And whoever can hold on to that is going to be in the best place moving forward.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a fantastic point right there, Jim. That because people are gonna start losing things. It's just happening. Like we lost our big night games to start the season. When we play a out of conference team and a big one, essentially it's lost right now, right? And when we lost the Penn State whiteout, it's lost right now, right? We don't know how it's gonna go, when we'll get it back, when we'll see it again. Also, we keep our tradition with Michigan because it's it's no kickoff. It's pretty simple, but like you say, people are losing things, man. But Ohio State, I guess we gotta say, goodbye to the collectives. It seems like, right? There's no more collectives with this ruling. It seems like they all will kind of start going wayside. I know the foundation kind of put out a goodbye today, and we tip our cash to the foundation. Was a huge part in building our national championship team and the things and work they put in there. But it's like it's on OSU. They launched their own. Let's say NIL department, more or less, with partnership with Learfield, and they'll kind of start that process of, I guess, figuring out deals. And they want to do this it made it clear for all athletes, right? That they're not, I guess, focusing in on this football and basketball, as we know that will take up the most of their time. But they're supposed to be kind of looking at different avenues and ways and revenue and things for all athletes to kind of get in on some NIL experiences.
I'm curious on how long that lasts, and not necessarily for Ohio State. I'm just talking about for college football or college sports in general, because maybe Ohio State can do it, right? It's the school, the Block O, Ohio State's a big brand, big alumni, et cetera. And there's other Big Ten schools that have very big alumni. But if you're University of Miami, for example, right? Private school, not, you can't compete in terms of alumni. Market is good, but you don't got the same level of following. And football is king, right? Basketball is there too. Women's basketball, men's basketball, football is king. At some point, do you just say, look, football is where it's at? We're really going to slim down everything else, and we're going to focus on what is actually not only driving revenue, but bringing kids to the school here. The reason why there's a ton of applicants here is because they're a fan of the brand, and that brand is synonymous with football. So again, I mean, I guess that's to the same point. I mean, how much of the tradition and the way you've always done things stays in place? I think a lot of it changes over, not super fast, but over the next 3 to 5 years. I think we see a lot of transition here when it comes to how athletic departments look and how much the how much teams so they sold for this cash that they need to.
It's all up in the air, man. It's all up in the air. But just real quick, obviously it's the summer, so now we know this usually things have changed, right? This is when a lot of the big recruits are coming in for their official visits. This past week, we got a commitment out of running back out of Delaware, Hayes, close here to Columbus, and that's Favor Butcher Eku out of Delaware. He's a running back for the 26 class, and obviously it's Buckeye Nation. Someone's under fire. Our guy, Coach Johnson's under heat because so far the 26 class doesn't have any commits on the defensive line. We know our D line is kind of thin. They are thin. They're unexperienced. So maybe this week Coach Johnson will be able to nag a couple and we'll be able to report it in our next show.
Yeah, we need it. We need it on the D line. If there's one place where you need a lot of depth and a lot of talented players, this is where you don't really want to. You want the 5-star guy. You want the 4-star. You want some big athletic guys who can come in and play well on the D line. That's what Ohio State has always kind of had. So yeah, I believe in Coach Johnson.
I believe in Coach Johnson.
I believe in Coach Johnson.
Yep.
I also believe in the money behind the brand.
Coach Johnson, right?
Right. So we need to double both. We need to double at least the money. Give them a little bit more power. I know that the revenue share, but I don't know how else increase the brands or whatever other opportunities to give them some reinforcements. We gotta close some of these defensive linemen for sure.
Yeah, we will. But that's our show for today. Continue to follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. We'll be bringing you all the news of the new commits of the guys that come in throughout the summer. We're not going over the people that bring it in this for the visit. It's just too many guys. But once a guy commit, we'll bring it to you. And we'll give us our thoughts and opinion on our 26 class that we're currently working on over these next couple of weeks. But as always, we're going to end our show with a nice OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.